Why do pets evolve similar traits? Why do animals living with humans evolve so similar traits? A new theory may explain domestication syndrome. In the 19th century, Charles Darwin was one of the first to notice something interesting about domesticated animals. Different species often develop similar changes when compared to their ancient wild ancestors. But why do seemingly unrelated traits reappear in different domesticated animals? Scientists call this collective body of changes the domestication syndrome. And they still debate heatedly why these changes occurred. A new article in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B argues that the currently popular explanations are not true. And it proposes a new explanation that focuses on major changes in the lifestyle of domesticated animals. Also, the researchers' theories along the way reveal an unexpected story about how humans domesticated themselves. Shared changes under the influence of domestication. The most commonly shared change is compliant behavior. All domesticated animals are naturally calmer than their wild ancestors. This is not so surprising. Ancient people probably preferred tame and breeding animals for domestication. But other pervasive changes don't seem to be beneficial for humans or animals at all. Shorter faces, small teeth, fragile skeletons, small brains, such as different skin, fur, and feather colors. Not all domesticated animals share all of these characteristics. For example, dogs have many of these traits, and camels only a few. However, each change is seen in more than one domesticated species. Self-domestication of wild animals. Surprisingly, sometimes very similar changes occur in wild animals. And it's leading some scientists to think that wild animals have somehow tamed themselves. The bonobo, a great ape closely related to the chimpanzee, is an excellent example of an animal that undergoes these changes without human intervention. Urban foxes are another example. Wild self-domestication is most common in isolated subpopulations such as the archipelago. And this may coincide with a similar phenomenon known as the island effect. More surprisingly, perhaps modern humans also show features of domestication syndrome compared to our ancient ancestors. This alludes to the idea that we humans, too, have domesticated ourselves. Some scientists argue that these changes have made us more social, helping us develop complex languages and cultures. What causes domestication syndrome? In recent years, two possible explanations for domestication syndrome have dominated scientific debate. The first suggests that ancient humans chose more docile animals to tame, which in turn was a trigger for other traits to change. This idea is supported by the famous long-running Russian fox breeding experiment, which began in 1959. In this experiment, caged foxes were selected only for domestication. However, in the process, they also developed other random features that were not selected. The second statement completes the first statement. It argues that selection for domestication causes other traits, all of which are linked to genes that control nerve-ending cells. These cells in embryos form many animal characteristics. So changing them can cause multiple differences at the same time. But the new research suggests that these two ideas oversimplify and obscure complex evolutionary influences in behavior. First, there are problems with the famous Russian fox experiment. As other authors have noted, the experiment did not begin by taming wild foxes. Foxes from a farm in Canada were used for the experiment. And farm-raised foxes already had characteristics of domestication syndrome. Moreover, the experimenters didn't just choose foxes for domestication. They have bred other foxes for aggression. But aggressive foxes also developed taming syndrome traits. And in a similar experiment done in 1930, although there was no deliberate choice for domestication or aggression, caged rats developed the same common changes, including domestication behavior. Thus, domestication syndrome may not be due to people choosing animals to domesticate. The changes may instead result from undesirable joint effects of the new home environment. A new hypothesis for the domestication syndrome. It is not just the effects of new selection, such as human domestication, that matter. Eliminating pre-existing selection is just as important. Because that's what naturally shaped wild ancestors in the first place. For example, domesticated animals are often protected from predators. Wild features may be lost for this reason. You need to avoid them. Competition for mating partners is also generally reduced. Because of this, wild breeding characteristics and behavior may be reduced or even lost. Domesticated animals are usually fed whole. This may change certain properties. But their natural metabolism and growth inevitably changes. In fact, even between different species, it is argued that not only selection for domestication, but multiple selective changes are at work on domesticated animals, and that common transitions in evolutionary selection will often cause common changes in traits. So, how did we domesticate ourselves? One current theory is that social beta males have started collaborating to kill alpha bullies. This changed the way the competition between men works. And it resulted in the emergence of less large, aggressive males. But theory suggests that other influences also play a role in the process. For example, our early ancestors developed the ability to jointly care for babies. Sharing the care of a calf today in our chimpanzee relative could trigger extreme stress for the mother. But our ancestors adapted to this increased stress and acquired an effective survival strategy. More reliable food access and collective defense against predators through group foraging and sharing may have made us more social, collaborative and complex. And it may have spurred other changes commonly seen in other domesticated animals. Regardless, the recognition of specific driving forces in each species better explains the domestication syndrome. And it reaffirms the complexity of evolutionary influences that have shaped all life on Earth.